Nari watched the blue planet burn through the bridge windows of her ship. Earth looked small from this distance, but the orange fires eating across its surface made her stomach turn. She pressed her hand against the cold metal wall and felt the vibrations of enemy weapons hitting their shields. The defense fleet was losing badly. "Captain, we lost another orbital station," her communications officer called out. The young man's voice shook as he read the numbers on his screen. "Station 7 is gone. No survivors." Nari closed her eyes for a moment. Station 7 had 3,000 people on it. Good people who just wanted to protect their home world. Now they were space dust floating in the dark. She opened her eyes and looked at her crew. 28 humans on the bridge of the ship called Retribution. Maybe the last 28 humans who would ever see Earth alive. "Admiral Tejo is requesting all ships to fall back to the inner defense line," the communications officer said. His hands moved fast over the controls as more bad news came through. "The hegemony fleet is breaking through Sector 4. Nari knew Admiral Tejo since she was a young officer. He taught her how to command ships and how to make hard choices. The old man never backed down from a fight, but this fight was different. This fight was about the end of everything human. The hegemony had 6 different alien races working together. Each race was stronger than humans in different ways. The reptile-like Keth were bigger and meaner in close combat. The insect Vren could think faster and build better machines. The gas cloud Nim could move through space without ships. The crystal Azar could talk to each other across any distance instantly. The water creatures called Maul controlled all the trade routes between star systems. And the energy beings called Yil could do things that human science could not explain. For 10 years, the aliens had been pushing humans out of colony after colony. They said humans were too violent and too unpredictable to exist in their perfect galaxy. They offered humans a choice: become slaves in their caste system or die. Humans chose to fight. Now Earth was the last human world left, and it was dying. "Nari!" Admiral Tejo's voice came through the ship's communication system. His old face appeared on the main screen. Behind him, she could see the bridge of his ship shaking from weapon impacts. "I'm going to try something crazy. Take your ship and get behind the moon. Wait for my signal." "Admiral, what are you planning?" Nari asked, but she was already giving orders to her pilot to move the ship. "Something that should have been done years ago," Tejo said. His eyes looked tired but determined. "The scientists have been working on a weapon that tears holes in space itself. They said it was too dangerous to use." "Well, right now, dangerous sounds pretty good to me." Nari felt ice in her stomach. Space-tearing weapons were theoretical. No one knew what would happen if you actually used one. It could destroy the enemy fleet, or it could destroy everything in the solar system. Maybe both. "Admiral, that's suicide," she said. "Maybe." Tejo smiled sadly. "But at least it's our choice. The hegemony wants to decide how humanity ends. I say we show them that humans decide their own fate." The Retribution moved behind Earth's moon just as the enemy fleet pushed past the last orbital defenses. Nari watched on her sensors as hundreds of alien ships moved toward Earth like hungry wolves. Each ship carried enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. Together they could turn Earth into an asteroid field. "All human ships, this is Admiral Tejo," the old man's voice came through the communications. "It has been an honor to serve with you. Remember us." Nari saw Tejo's ship turn and accelerate directly toward the center of the enemy fleet. The massive human dreadnought moved faster than she had ever seen a ship that size move. Other human ships followed him, captains who knew they were about to die but wanted to make it count. The space around the enemy fleet began to shimmer and twist. Reality itself started to bend as the experimental weapon activated. The aliens must have realized what was happening because their ships started to scatter, but it was too late. The fabric of space-time tore open like cloth ripping. A hole in nothing appeared right in the middle of the hegemony fleet. Ships were pulled toward it and stretched into long, thin lines before disappearing. The hole grew bigger and started pulling in everything around it, including Tai-Ho's ship. Nari gripped her command chair as the gravitational waves hit the retribution. The ship spun and tumbled as space itself went crazy around them. Warning. Alarms screamed and her crew held onto their stations. Through the chaos, she saw the space tear weapon reach critical mass. The explosion that followed was not light or sound or heat. It was the universe itself screaming in pain. The hole in space collapsed and then expanded again, sending out waves of twisted reality that caught Nari's ship and threw it into dimensions that had no names. When the shaking stopped and the alarms went quiet, Nari slowly opened her eyes. The bridge lights flickered back on. Half her crew was unconscious and the other half looked confused and scared. Outside the windows, she saw stars she did not recognize in patterns that made no sense. "Status report," she said with a voice that sounded stronger than she felt. "We're alive," her pilot said with surprise. "Don't ask me how, but we're alive. Navigation is completely lost. I have no idea where we are." Nari's science officer looked up from her instruments with a face gone pale. "Captain, I'm reading the long-range communication channels. There are no human signals anywhere. None at all." The bridge went silent. Nari felt something cold and heavy settle in her chest. She walked to the communications station and activated the galaxy-wide emergency frequencies that all human colonies monitored. Static. She tried the military channels. Static. She tried the civilian channels. Static. Then she found an alien signal. The voice speaking was one of the energy beings, called Yil. It spoke in perfect human language. To all worlds and species of the galaxy, the human infestation has been completely eliminated. The former human territories are now available for colonization by civilized races. The galaxy is finally clean. Nari stared at the communication screen as the message repeated. She looked around at her crew. 28 humans. The only humans left in a galaxy of trillions of aliens who had just celebrated the extinction of her entire species. She thought about her sister Mira, who had died defending the colony on New Sol. She thought about her parents who had lived their whole lives on Earth. She thought about the children who would never grow up, and the lovers who would never meet, and the dreams that would never be dreamed. Something changed inside Nari at that moment. Something that had been human became something else, something colder and sharper and infinitely more dangerous. She looked at her crew and saw the same change beginning in their eyes. "Set course for the nearest hegemony world," she said quietly. "It's time they learned what monsters really look like." 6 months had passed since Earth died, and Nari no longer looked like the same person. Her hair had turned white from the stress, and her eyes held a coldness that made her crew uncomfortable. She spent most of her time in the ship's laboratory, working on things that scared the science officers. The space-tier weapon had done more than transport them to unknown regions. It had changed her at a level deeper than genetics. The ship's computer had been reprogrammed and given a new personality, based on her dead sister Mira. Nara called the artificial intelligence Mira, and treated it like the only family she had left. Mira helped her process the captured alien data they had taken from destroyed hegemony ships over the past months. "The Keth homeworld has a population of 12 billion, Mira said in Mira's voice as data scrolled across the laboratory screens. "They are the primary military force of the hegemony. Physical combat specialists with honor-based culture." Nari nodded as she worked on a device that looked like a combination of human technology and alien parts she had salvaged. Her hands moved with precision that seemed impossible for someone who had never built such things before. The space tier. Exposure had enhanced her mind and body in ways she was still discovering. "What about their weaknesses?" she asked. "They value personal combat above group tactics. Individual Keth warriors will abandon strategic positions to engage in one-on-one duels. They also have deep psychological fear of being considered cowardly by their peers." Nari smiled, but it was not a nice smile. "Perfect. What about the others? The Vren hive colonies operate on pure logic and efficiency. They cannot adapt quickly to chaos or unpredictable situations. The Nim gas beings fear being forced into solid matter. The Crystal Azar depend entirely on their instant communication network. The aquatic Maul control trade routes but are vulnerable when away from water. And the energy Yil consider themselves gods who cannot be touched by physical beings. Each species had helped destroy humanity in their own way. Each would pay in their own way. Nari had been studying them like a doctor studies a disease. She knew how they thought, and how they feared, and how they could be broken. Her first target was a remote Keth mining facility on the edge of their territory. The base had 200 soldiers and 50 civilian workers. It was far enough from the main worlds that help would take weeks to arrive. Perfect for what she planned. The Retribution approached the mining base at night using stealth technology Nari had improved with captured alien systems. Her ship was invisible to their sensors as it landed on the dark side of the small moon where the base was built. "Captain, are you sure about this?" her security chief asked. The man had served with her for 3 years, but he looked nervous. "Going in alone seems like suicide." Nari checked the weapons and tools she had created in the laboratory. Each device was designed specifically to terrify Keth warriors. "I'm not going in to fight," she said. "I'm going in to teach." She left the ship alone and walked across the airless surface of the moon. Her enhanced body did not need a full environmental suit anymore. A simple breathing mask and some protective clothing was enough. Another gift from the space-tier weapon. The mining base was built into the rock of the moon with only a few surface structures visible. Nari found the main entrance and used an alien device to override their security systems. The Keth had never imagined that a human could use their own technology against them. Inside the base, she moved like a shadow through corridors filled with sleeping aliens. The Keth were large reptilian creatures with thick scales and powerful claws. They slept in communal chambers that reflected their pack-based social structure. Nari did not kill them immediately. Instead, she used a combination of alien neural technology and human psychological warfare. She entered the dreams of each sleeping Keth and planted images of Earth burning and human children crying. She made them feel the terror that humans had, felt during the long war. When they woke up screaming, she was already gone, but she had left presents for them. In the main corridor, she had arranged the mining equipment into a perfect geometric pattern that spelled out words in the human language. The words said, "Remember us." She had used their own tools to create a memorial for humanity carved into the walls of their base. But the real message was in their weapons storage. Every gun and blade and explosive device had been transformed into abstract art sculptures. Beautiful twisted metal that used to be instruments of death now stood as monuments to human creativity. The weapons could never be used again, but they were somehow more powerful as art. The base commander found the sculptures first. He was a veteran Keth warrior named Drak, who had fought humans for years. He understood immediately that this was not random vandalism. This was a human artist making a statement with materials that had once been used to kill humans. "Sound the alarm," he ordered his troops. "Search every room, find whoever did this." But Nari was already back on her ship watching through hidden cameras she had placed during her visit. She wanted to see their faces when they realized the full scope of what had happened. The Keth searched for hours but found no trace of an intruder. Their security systems showed no breach. Their sensors detected no foreign presence. According to their technology, nothing had happened at all. But the memorial was there. The art was there. And in the dreams of every Keth in the base were images of dead human worlds and the faces of children who would never grow up. "Mira, send a message to the Keth Military Command," Nari said as her ship lifted off from the moon. "Tell them that a human artist visited their mining base and left them a gift. Tell them more gifts are coming. Message sent, Nari, Mira replied. Where to next? The Vren Logistics Center in the Spiral Arm. I want to show them what chaos looks like when it's applied with human creativity. As the Retribution jumped to faster-than-light travel, Nari sat in her command chair and thought about the faces of the Keth warriors when they found her memorial. Fear and confusion, and the beginning of understanding that something had changed in their safe galaxy. Over the next month, she visited 12 different hegemony facilities. Each visit was different, but the pattern was always the same. She would arrive unseen, leave a message that combined human artistry with psychological warfare, and disappear before anyone could respond. The Vren Hive Mind Logistics Center woke up to find their perfect efficiency algorithms replaced with equations that created beautiful mathematical fractals. The fractals were so complex and beautiful that the Vren computers spent days trying to process them instead of handling supply shipments. A NIM patrol fleet found their gas-form containment systems modified to create music, haunting melodies, that told the story of Earth's last day played through their communication systems. The music was coded into their technology so deeply that they could not remove it without rebuilding their ships. An Azar communication relay discovered that their crystal network had been programmed to transmit human poetry across their entire civilization. Love poems and war songs and lullabies that human mothers had sung to human children spread through their perfect information system like a virus of emotion. Each incident was reported to the hegemony leadership, but they did not understand what they were dealing with. They thought Nari was just a terrorist with advanced technology. They sent hunting fleets to find her ship, but she was always 3 steps ahead of them. The truth was that Nari was not just hunting the aliens. She was studying them, learning their fears and weaknesses and the psychology that held their civilizations together. Each artistic attack was an experiment designed to test their responses and gather data for larger plans. The Hegemony Council has issued a galaxy-wide alert about the Phantom ship, Mira reported as they traveled between star systems. They're calling you the Ghost of Terra. Nari liked that name. It fit what she had become. Not quite human anymore, but not fully alien either. Something in between that carried the memory of 8 billion dead humans and the promise of justice. For their murders. Let them be afraid, she said. Fear is just the beginning. Soon they'll understand what humans are really capable of when we stop pretending to be civilized. The ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, heading for the next target. In the distance, alien worlds slept peacefully, not knowing that something human was coming for them. Something that had transcended the limitations of mortality and morality, to become pure vengeance given form and purpose. The real war was about to begin. The hegemony leadership finally understood they had a real problem when Nari destroyed an entire Keth battle fleet without firing a single shot. She had challenged their greatest champion to personal combat and broadcast the fight across their military network. What the Keth warriors saw made them question everything they believed about honor and strength. Fleet Admiral Zek Thul watched the recording for the 5th time in his command center on the Keth home world. The massive reptilian warrior stood over 10 feet tall with scales that could stop most weapons and claws that could tear through metal. He had never seen anything like what happened in that fight. The human female had walked onto the Keith battleship wearing simple clothes with no armor or weapons. She looked small and fragile compared to Champion Gorthak, who was the finest warrior their species had produced in a generation. The fight should have lasted seconds. Instead, it lasted exactly 3 minutes and 47 seconds. Long enough for every Keth warrior in the fleet to watch their champion get systematically destroyed by something that looked like a weak human female. Nari moved like water and struck like lightning. Every blow she landed found exactly the right spot to cause maximum pain without killing immediately. She broke Gorthak's claws one by one while explaining to him that humans had also believed in honor once. She shattered his scales while describing the children who had died when the Keth bombarded human colony worlds. When Gorthak finally fell, she did not kill him. Instead, she helped him stand and spoke directly to the cameras that were recording everything. "This warrior fought with honor," she said in perfect Keth language. "But honor means nothing when you use it to justify genocide. Your people helped murder 8 billion humans. Now you will learn what one human can do when she stops caring about honor and starts caring only about results." Then she walked off the ship, while the entire Keth fleet watched in stunned silence. No one tried to stop her. They were too shocked to move. "Admiral, we have to respond to this," Zekthul's second-in-command said. "The troops are starting to ask questions. Some are even saying the human might be right about what we did." Zekthul turned away from the recording and looked out at the massive military complex that covered 3 continents of their home world. Millions of Keth warriors trained here every day, preparing for battles against enemies who no longer existed. The humans were gone, but somehow one of them had come back stronger than ever. "Assemble Task Force Vengeance," he ordered. "Every available ship. This human thinks she can challenge the entire Keth military. Let her try." But Nari was not interested in fighting fair battles against large fleets. She had moved on to her next target, the Vren hive cities, where logic and efficiency ruled everything. The Vren were insect-like creatures who thought with mathematical precision. Their society was built around perfect information processing and flawless coordination between billions of individuals. They could not understand chaos or unpredictability because their minds were not designed for such concepts. Nari landed on their primary colony world in broad daylight without attempting to hide her ship. The Vren defense systems detected her immediately and sent interceptor flights to investigate. What they found confused their logical minds. The human ship was broadcasting mathematical equations across all frequencies. But these were not normal equations. They were chaos algorithms wrapped in beautiful geometric patterns that created infinite loops of recursive beauty. The Vren computers tried to process the equations and got caught in logical paradoxes that made them crash. Nari walked off her ship wearing a dress made from materials she had created in her laboratory. The dress showed moving patterns that hurt Vren eyes to look at directly. Mathematical impossibilities rendered in fabric that challenged their understanding of reality. "I want to speak to your queens," she announced to the confused Vren soldiers, who surrounded her. "Tell them a human mathematician has come to teach them about chaos theory." The queens of the Vren were the most intelligent individuals in their species. They made all decisions for their billions of workers and soldiers through perfect logical analysis. When they met Nari in their central hive chamber, they expected to face a primitive human who could be easily understood and controlled. Instead, they found something that made their advanced minds hurt to contemplate. Nari spoke to them in mathematical concepts that were simultaneously beautiful and impossible. She showed them equations that described the sound of human laughter and the color of a mother's love and the weight of a child's dream. "Your species values logic above all else," Nari said, as her chaos algorithms spread through their communication networks. "But you used that logic to justify helping destroy humanity. Now I will show you what happens when chaos is applied with human creativity and purpose." The chaos virus she had planted in their systems was not destructive in a traditional sense. Instead, it made their perfect efficiency slightly imperfect in ways that cascaded through their entire civilization. Supply shipments arrived at the right place but on the wrong day. Military formations moved in beautiful spirals instead of straight lines. Factory production created art instead of weapons. The Vren queens watched in horror as their perfect society transformed into something chaotic and unpredictable and strangely beautiful. Their logical minds could not process what was happening. They begged Nari to stop, but she just smiled and walked away, leaving them to deal with the new reality she had created. Her next target was even more ambitious. The Nim were gas cloud, beings who could travel through space without ships and communicate through electromagnetic frequencies. They considered themselves superior to all solid matter life forms and rarely interacted directly with other species. Nari had prepared a special gift for them. Using technology she barely understood herself, she created devices that could force gaseous beings into temporary, solid form. When the Nim Patrol encountered her ship, they tried their usual intimidation tactics, sending threatening messages through space itself. Nari responded by activating her solidification field. Suddenly, the proud gas cloud beings found themselves trapped in crude mechanical bodies made from their own ship's metal. They could think and speak, but they were forced to experience existence as heavy, clumsy creatures bound by gravity and physical laws. "Now you know how it feels to be limited by matter," she told them as they struggled with their new forms. "This is how humans lived every day of their lives. And you helped destroy us because we were too solid and too real for your perfect galaxy." She left them trapped in their mechanical bodies for exactly 24 hours before releasing the solidification field, long enough for them to experience true helplessness and understand that their perceived superiority was just an illusion. Word of these incidents spread through the hegemony faster than their ships could travel. The Crystal Azar Communication Network carried stories of the human who could not be stopped or understood. Each species began to fear that they would be next. Mira analyzed the intelligence reports that Nari intercepted from alien communications. "The Hegemony Council is meeting in emergency session," the AI reported. "They're starting to recall military units from the former human territories." Nari smiled as she planned her next move. "Good. Let them pull back their forces. Let them fortify their homeworlds. Fear is making them predictable, and predictable enemies are easier to defeat." Admiral Zek Thul's task force finally caught up to Nari's ship near the outer rim of Keth space. 300 warships surrounded the lone human vessel, demanding surrender. The Admiral himself broadcast a message offering Nari the chance to die with honor in battle. Nari's response was broadcast across all hegemony communication networks. She appeared on the main screen of every ship looking calm and confident, despite being outnumbered 300 to 1. "Admiral Zek Thul," she said, "your people pride themselves on being honorable warriors. But there is no honor in genocide. There is no courage in destroying defenseless colonies. You want to know what real strength looks like? Watch and learn what happened next became legend among the surviving aliens who witnessed it. Nari did not run or hide or try to fight the massive fleet with weapons. Instead, she flew her single ship directly into the center of their formation and activated a device that turned space itself into her weapon. The same chaos algorithms she had used on the Vren were now applied to the fundamental forces that held matter together. Reality became fluid around her ship. The Keth warships found their weapons turning into musical instruments that played haunting melodies instead of firing deadly beams. Their armor transformed into flowing fabric that moved, like liquid metal. Their communication systems began broadcasting human poetry and love songs. Their targeting computers started painting abstract art on their display screens instead of showing enemy positions. Admiral Zek Thul watched his mighty task force turn into a floating art gallery as Nari's ship danced between them untouched. She was not just defeating them in battle. She was transforming them into something beautiful and harmless, and completely unlike what they had been. When she finally left them drifting helplessly in space, with their weapons turned to art and their armor turned to silk, every alien in the galaxy understood that the rules had changed. 2 years had passed since Earth died, and Nari no longer looked human. Her body had been rebuilt with technology from all 6 alien species, combined with improvements of her own design. Her skin had a metallic sheen that reflected light in impossible colors. Her eyes glowed with energy that hurt to look at directly. When she moved, reality seemed to bend slightly around her, as if space itself was unsure how to contain what she had become. The hegemony was falling apart from within. The unity Between the 6 species that had allowed them to destroy humanity was cracking under the pressure of constant fear. Each species blamed the others for creating the monster that now haunted their civilization. The aquatic Maul were the first to break. Their control of the trade routes had made them wealthy and comfortable, but it had also made them cowards. When Nari began targeting their shipping lanes, they panicked and started making secret deals with anyone who might protect them from her wrath. Mira detected the first secret transmission while monitoring hegemony communications from the bridge of the Retribution. The ship itself had been transformed over the past 2 years into something that was part human technology, part alien science, and part pure impossibility. It moved through space using principles that violated several laws of physics. Nari, I'm picking up encrypted communications between mall traders and unknown parties, Mira reported. Her voice had evolved beyond simple mimicry of Mira's speech patterns. Now she sounded like a perfect fusion of human emotion and artificial precision. Nari was in her laboratory working on a device that looked like crystallized music. Her enhanced fingers moved with mechanical precision while her mind processed information at speeds that would have driven a normal human insane. "Play the transmission," she said without looking up from her work. The alien voices spoke in the liquid language of the mole, but Mira translated instantly. "We have 3 survivors from the human colony on New Sol, young, healthy specimens who have been conditioned to serve. We offer them as tribute in exchange for protection from the human demon." Nari stopped working and turned toward the speakers with movements that were too fluid to be entirely organic. "Survivors?" she said in a voice that made the ship's metal walls vibrate. "I'm triangulating the source of the transmission," Mira said. "It's coming from a mall trading station in the Kelmar system. The station appears to be serving as a gathering point for various alien factions who want to negotiate with you." Nari walked to the bridge with steps that left glowing footprints on the deck plates. Her crew had been reduced to just 5 humans over the past 2 years. The others had asked to be put in suspended animation rather than watch her continue to transform into something beyond their understanding. The 5 who remained were Engineer Wu Jin, Dr. Young Sik, Pilot Taemin, Weapons Specialist Kyung-ho, and Communications Officer Bomi. They had all been changed by proximity to Nari and the alien technology she used, but they were still recognizably human. They looked at her with a mixture of loyalty and fear that she found oddly comforting. "Set course for the mall trading station," she ordered. "It seems I'm not as alone as I thought." The journey took 3 days through hyperspace that bent around their ship like water around a stone. Nari spent the time preparing for what she might find. The possibility that other humans had survived the genocide filled her with emotions she had thought were burned away by 2 years of calculated revenge. The mall trading station was a massive structure built inside a hollow asteroid. Hundreds of alien ships surrounded it, representing every species in the galaxy except humans. When the Retribution appeared on their sensors, the entire station went silent. Nari's ship docked with the station using docking protocols that should not have worked with alien technology. But her ship had become something that could adapt to any situation through pure will and impossible science. She walked through the airlock wearing a flowing robe made from weaponized fabric that could cut through steel or turn into armor at her command. The aliens who saw her coming scattered like fish fleeing from a shark. Word of her arrival spread through the station faster than sound. The mole traders who had made the transmission were waiting for her in a conference room near the center of the station. They were aquatic creatures who wore mechanical suits filled with water to survive in air. Their large black eyes showed intelligence and desperation in equal measure. "Great One," their spokesman said in careful human language. "We offer tribute in hope of mercy. 3 humans from the colony world you called New Sol. They are unharmed and well cared for." The door opened and 3 humans were brought into the room. Nari looked at them and felt something she had not experienced in 2 years. Recognition of her own species. But what she saw made the thing that had been her humanity curl up and die a little more. The first was a man in his 30s who had the steady hands of an engineer. His name was Wu Jin, but not the same Wu Jin who served on her ship. This one had been broken by years of captivity and conditioning. His eyes held no hope and no fight. He looked at Nari not with relief, but with fear. The second was a doctor named Young Sik, who was probably 50 years old. He had been forced to treat alien injuries and diseases for the past 2 years. His medical knowledge had kept him alive, but his spirit was crushed. When he saw Nari, he immediately fell to his knees, expecting punishment. The third was a child, no more than 12 years old. A girl named Boram, who had never seen Earth or known freedom. She had been raised as a pet by the aliens and spoke their languages better than human language. She looked at Nari with curiosity rather than recognition. "Please," the broken engineer whispered, "don't hurt them. They were kind to us. We served faithfully. We caused no trouble." Nari stared at the 3 humans and realized that this was what her species had become in the hands of their conquerors. Broken slaves who thanked their masters for the privilege of survival. The sight filled her with a rage so pure and cold that the air in the room began to freeze. "How many?" she asked the mall spokesman in a voice like Arctic wind. "Great One?" the alien creature asked nervously. "How many humans are still alive? How many are being held as slaves and pets and trophies across this galaxy?" The mall checked their electronic records with trembling appendages. "Perhaps 10,000 scattered across hundreds of worlds. Most are in the Outer Rim territories where local governors keep them as curiosities or servants. 10,000 humans left alive out of 8 billion who had lived before the war, hidden away like shameful secrets by the aliens who had supposedly eliminated humanity completely, kept alive to serve as reminders of their master's power over life and death." Nari looked at the 3 survivors and saw everything she had lost. The engineer Wu Jin could have been her friend from the academy. The doctor Young Sik reminded her of her family physician who had treated her childhood injuries with infinite patience. The child Boram had the same bright eyes as her sister Mira had possessed at that age. But they were not her people anymore. They were what remained of humanity after it had been processed and refined and reduced to its most useful components by alien efficiency. They were survivors, but they were not human in any way that mattered. "You want mercy," she said to the mole traders. "You want protection from my wrath in exchange for returning a few broken remnants of my species to me." "Yes, Great One," the spokesman said hopefully. "We have treated them well. We have preserved their lives when others would have discarded them." Nari walked closer to the 3 human survivors. They huddled together like frightened animals expecting pain. She reached out and gently touched the child's face with fingers that had been rebuilt to channel impossible energies. "What is your name?" she asked in the gentlest voice she could manage. "I am called Pet 7, the girl replied in perfect mall language. "I serve the Water Masters with gratitude for their kindness in allowing me to exist." Nari closed her eyes and felt the last fragments of her original humanity crumble into dust. These were not her people. Her people would have died fighting rather than accept slavery. Her people would have chosen extinction over humiliation. When she opened her eyes again, they glowed with energy that made the aliens step back in terror. "You preserved them," she said to the mall traders, "like specimens in a museum, like trophies from a successful hunt." "We meant no disrespect, Great One," the spokesman said desperately. "We thought you would be pleased to know your species continues." "My species died 2 years ago when Earth burned," Nari replied. "What you have preserved are the memories of what we used to be. Beautiful memories that have been turned into living reminders of our defeat." She turned away from the 3 humans and faced the mall traders directly. "You want to negotiate with me? You want mercy and protection? Fine. Here are my terms. Every human slave in the galaxy will be found and freed, not returned to me, freed to choose their own path. Of course, Great One, the spokesman agreed quickly. We will begin immediately. But, Nari continued with a smile that was not human anymore. I was never asked to be their savior. I never wanted to rescue broken slaves who thanked their masters for the privilege of existence. Do you know what I am? The aliens shook their heads fearfully. I am vengeance, she said as reality began to warp around her. The Unity Nexus was the greatest achievement of the hegemony. A massive space station built at the center of their territory where representatives from all 6 species made decisions that affected trillions of lives across the galaxy. It was supposed to be the ultimate symbol of their civilization's superiority over the chaotic and violent humans they had eliminated. Now it was about to become their tomb. Nari approached the station in the retribution with no attempt at stealth or deception. She wanted them to see her coming. She wanted them to have time to prepare their defenses and call for reinforcements and gather their most powerful leaders in one place. It would make what happened next more efficient. The station was protected by the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. 5,000 warships from all 6 hegemony species surrounded the Nexus in defensive formations that should have been impregnable. Their weapons could have sterilized 100 worlds. Their shields could have withstood the energy output of a star. None of it mattered. Nari had spent 3 years becoming something that transcended the normal rules of physics and warfare. Her ship moved through their defensive lines like a ghost, made of starfire and impossible mathematics. Their weapons passed through her as if she existed in a different dimension. Their shields parted before her like curtains opening for a performance. The battle for Unity Nexus was not a battle at all. It was an execution carried out with the precision of a surgeon and the artistry of a master painter. Nari did not simply destroy the defending fleet. She transformed it. Each ship that fired on her found its weapons turning into musical instruments that played the melodies human mothers had sung to their children. The war songs of Earth echoed through space as alien warships became a cosmic orchestra performing humanity's greatest hits. Admiral Zek Thul led the Keth battle group in a final desperate charge against the human ship. His massive dreadnought had been modified with every weapon system the hegemony could create. It should have been able to crack planets, but when it fired on Nari, the energy beams became streams of liquid light that painted murals in space showing the history of human civilization. "Fire everything!" Zek Thul roared to his crew as their weapons produced art instead of destruction. Nari's voice came through their communication system clear and calm. "Admiral Zek Thul, you have hunted me across the galaxy for 3 years. Now I offer you what you wanted, single combat, warrior to warrior. If you win, I will surrender myself to the hegemony." Zek Thul did not hesitate. He had trained his entire life for moments like this. He armed himself with the finest weapons. His species could create and met Nari in the main hangar bay of his ship. His crew gathered to watch their champion face the human demon who had terrorized their civilization. What they saw was not the epic battle they expected. Nari appeared wearing simple human clothing with no visible weapons or armor. She looked small and fragile compared to the massive Keth warrior who stood twice her height and weighed 5 times as much. "You look disappointed," Nari said as she walked calmly toward him. "Were you expecting something more impressive?" Zek Thul charged with a roar that shook the hangar bay. His claws could tear through steel, and his strength could crush bones to powder. He had killed hundreds of enemies in personal combat over his long military career. Nari caught his attack with one hand and stopped him completely. Her fingers closed around his claws and began to squeeze with pressure that made the metal bend and break. "You want to know what humans really are?" she asked as she began systematically dismantling the most feared warrior in the galaxy with casual ease. "We are the species that turns suffering into art and pain into purpose. We take the worst things that can happen to us and we use them to become something stronger. She broke his claws one by one while explaining how human children had died when his fleet bombarded the colonies. She shattered his armor plates while describing the music that had played in human cities before the war. She crushed his weapons while reciting the names of poets and artists and dreamers who had been killed in the genocide. Your people pride themselves on honor in combat, she said as she held the broken warrior in her enhanced hands. But there is no honor in extinction. There is no glory in murdering children. You want to know what real strength looks like? She released him and stepped back. Zekthul collapsed to the deck plates, breathing heavily and bleeding from dozens of precisely inflicted wounds. He was alive, but completely defeated. Real strength is becoming something your victims could never have imagined. Real power is making the universe itself bend to your will because your cause is just and your purpose is pure. Nari turned to face the watching Keth crew members. Your admiral fought bravely, but courage without wisdom is just another form of stupidity. Tell your leaders that the human they tried to destroy sends her regards. She walked off the ship, leaving Zekthul broken but alive. Another witness to carry the message that the rules had changed forever. The other hegemony leaders watched the defeat of their greatest warrior from the command center of Unity Nexus. The crystal beings called Azar had provided perfect communication, links that let them see every moment of Zekthul's humiliation. The energy creatures called Yil flickered with distress as they realized their assumptions about human limitations had been completely wrong. She's moving toward the station, reported the Vren tactical analyst. Her insect-like mind processed information with mathematical precision, but even she could not calculate a defense against an enemy who violated the basic laws of physics. Nari's ship passed through the station's shields like they were made of soap bubbles. It landed in the main docking bay with gentle precision that somehow seemed more threatening than any violent crash could have been. She walked through the corridors of Unity Nexus alone and unafraid. The station's security systems tried to stop her but found their weapons transforming into abstract sculptures and their barriers becoming doorways that opened at her approach. The Hegemony Council was waiting for her in their grand chamber where decisions affecting the entire galaxy were made. Representatives from all 6 species sat in chairs designed to demonstrate their power and authority over the lesser races of the galaxy. Nari entered the chamber, wearing a simple dress made from fabric that showed moving images of Earth as it had been before the war. Green forests and blue oceans and cities full of humans living their ordinary, beautiful lives. Honored representatives of the hegemony, she said with a voice that carried clearly to every corner of the massive room. I am Nari, captain of the human vessel Retribution. I believe you wanted to see me. The Yil energy being who served as council chairman flickered with barely controlled fear. Human, you have committed acts of terrorism across our territory for 3 years. We offer you the chance to surrender and face trial for your crimes. Nari laughed, and the sound was like music made from breaking glass. Crimes? You destroyed 8 billion innocent people, and you want to lecture me about crimes? The human species was declared a threat to galactic peace and order, the Vren Queen stated with mechanical precision. Their elimination was a necessary action to preserve civilization. Civilization, Nari repeated as she walked closer to their elevated seats. Is that what you call a system where 6 species decide which other races deserve to exist? The Maul representative, a aquatic creature in a water-filled mechanical suit, spoke with desperate diplomacy. Great one, we have freed the human slaves, as you commanded. Surely this demonstrates our good faith and willingness to make amends. You freed 10,000 broken survivors of a species that once numbered 8 billion, Nari replied. You gave them ships and supplies and told them to go rebuild their civilization somewhere else. How generous of you. She reached the center of the chamber and stopped directly beneath the seats of power that the alien leaders had used to rule the galaxy for centuries. But I didn't come here to argue about reparations or negotiate peace treaties, she continued. I came here to show you what accountability looks like when it's applied by someone who has nothing left to lose. The chamber filled with energy that made the air itself glow with impossible colors. Nari rose from the floor, surrounded by forces that bent reality around her will. You want to know what I learned during my 3 years of hunting your people? She asked, as gravity began flowing in directions that had no names. I learned that civilizations are just stories that entire species tell themselves to justify their actions. You told yourselves the story that humans were violent and chaotic and needed to be eliminated for the greater good. The alien leaders tried to activate their emergency systems, but found their technology responding to Nari's will instead of their commands. Their weapons turned into instruments that played mournful dirges. Their shields became transparent screens, showing images of human children playing in gardens that no longer existed. Now I'm going to tell you a new story, Nari said, as she began to remake the fundamental structure of the space station around them. A story about what happens when you try to erase a species and leave one survivor who remembers what you took. Away! The Keth military leader tried to stand and draw his weapon, but found his armor transforming into flowing silk that bound him gently but completely to his chair.